We have Kevin O'Leary on Fox News again, and I did a video on him last week. The thing about Kevin O'Leary is that he's definitely economically conservative, probably a Republican, probably voted mostly Republican his whole life. That's sort of the energy, the vibe, the rhetoric that he sends spreads. The thing is, he is sometimes spot on, and sometimes he could not be more wrong when it comes to the analysis that he's putting out. Um, and this is one of those examples where I have to zoom in on it and give you an idea of just how much of just how incredibly wrong and stupid he sounds, and partisan. So let's take a listen, and I'll be able to prove him wrong.
Um, I didn't know anything about the VP candidate, Tim, and so I did some digging last week. I got the data last Friday. He is not a good manager. If you look at his stewardship of his state, Minnesota, it's been not good. And I'll tell you how I measure it. Look, and don't people say, oh, you're partisan.
Of course, they picked the stupidest picture they could.
You're partisan. No, I'm not. I'm looking at the track record.
You're a little partisan.
Record of an individual came into a state and wiped out job creation. He wiped out job creation in professional, in manufacturing, in accounting, in every subcategory you look at. Those jobs moved to South Dakota and North Dakota. The South Dakota job rate right now is 4 times that of Minnesota. Minnesota only creates jobs in services that are funded by the government, healthcare and social services. Every other sector is in decline. He's also added a surcharge of 1%, 100 basis points, on top of.
So he's spreading a bunch of drivel and nonsense about Tim Walz's record in Minnesota. He cites manufacturing. So if all that's true, why is it that Minnesota is outpacing the Midwest in terms of manufacturing job growth? That's a bit strange. So U.S. 6.4% overall. A lot of the Midwest, there's some varying degrees of success. Seems like the only place is declining is in Alaska. But Minnesota is adding manufacturing jobs faster than the rest of the Midwest, according to Axios. Why it matters: manufacturing is a significant piece of Minnesota's diverse economy, and the industry's long-term health is vital to the state. Minnesota added 16,000 manufacturing jobs from January 2021 to May 2023, an increase of 5.3%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. While that's better than nearly every Midwest peer, it lags the national average slightly, which is 6.3%. Southern and Western states are adding jobs at a faster pace. Minnesota has gotten some good manufacturing news last week. Boston Scientific adding jobs, solar panels, etc. Okay, so they're not doing so bad in terms of manufacturing jobs. In fact, there are some other states in the Midwest that are not keeping pace, whereas, of course, there are others that are doing better. But okay, not the worst thing in the world. In terms of unemployment, this was not exactly the chart that here we go. In terms of unemployment, Minnesota has outpaced the U.S. average to the downside, or in other words, the unemployment rate has been lower in Minnesota than the average in the United States. That is pre-COVID, that is during COVID, and that includes post-COVID. Okay. And then finally, happiest states in America ranked. Happiness comes from a combination of internal and external factors. In 2023, high inflation remains a threat. In fact, more than 74% of Americans who have experienced price increases where they live feeling very moderately stressed. Even though people across the U.S. are facing difficult times, the state in which you live may have an impact on how you are happy. In this study, we drew upon the findings of happiness to determine which environmental factors are linked to a person's overall well-being. Across 50 states with 30 key metrics ranging from the depression rate and the share of adults feeling productive to income growth and the unemployment rate. So you might be asking, wow, considering everything that Kevin O'Leary said, Minnesota must be a complete disaster. They must be at the bottom of the list. Tim Walz has mismanaged the state and everybody's unhappy and doing terribly. Well, then why is it that Minnesota ranks 4th overall out of 50 states in terms of happiness overall? And why do they have the number 3 overall rank in terms of work environment? If the manufacturing jobs are all gone, if there's no jobs and everybody's struggling and it's been mismanaged, then that would seem to not make sense. Very strange. And I would say, why is it on the other end that the bottom 15, besides for 2 states, Oregon and New Mexico. Why is it that all of these states in the bottom 15, save for two, have voted for Republicans in almost all of the previous election cycles? They're good questions to consider. Kevin O'Leary claiming to not be partisan, but clearly cherry picking and looking for any reason to not like the Democratic side, who he perceives as being far left, which in reality is just somebody who is going to not let him get away with unfair practices, outsourcing, and driving down wages for working people. That's why Kevin O'Leary doesn't like him, because Tim Walz is good for working people and will not necessarily be good for venture capitalists and billionaires like himself. So that's my take on that. Kevin O'Leary, kind of an asshole. And thanks. Peace.